All right, welcome back to the Just Some BS podcast. Today we have Rich Moorhead on. He is a keynote speaker, artist, author of forthcoming book When the Wheels Come Off, which is coming out this fall, and the original founder of Art of Board. Welcome, Rich.
Well, thank you. Good to be here.
Thank you for stopping off at a hotel to do this. It's amazing.
Hey man, coming back from Boston is like, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it.
Well, thank you for that. You could have certainly rescheduled, but thanks for jumping in.
I like a challenge.
So you have a pretty amazing story, and we're going to get into some of that and certainly what you're doing moving forward. So I want to talk about origin story with the skate shop and sustainability. So you originally planned to open a skate shop, but instead built a wall tile system from broken boards. What was the light bulb moment that made you pivot from selling skateboards to repurposing them into art?
Yeah, it didn't really, the dots just don't automatically connect, or do they? No, I wanted to open a skate shop to kind of divert from my corporate day job. I took a different path, and it was just things that happened at the time. My nephew was skating at the time. Tony Hawk had just maybe a year prior landed his first 900 at the X Games, and that just catapulted skateboarding to another level. And I just growing up skating, I saw this activity of this influx of new skaters, and really nowhere to support the effort, at least in my town of Hanover, Pennsylvania, and thought it'd be really fun to connect with my youth, open a shop, and kind of have an outlet while supporting the local community as well. And the more I got into it, the more I dug into going shop to shop just to kind of see what a modern shop looked like, and talk to some of the owners and see what it would take to run a shop, and how much skateboarding had changed from when I was a kid, which is drastic.
Yeah, sure.
My nephew had a pile of broken boards outside of the garage, but I thought surely there was some kind of an effort, some kind of a recycling movement or something in place. And that's where I touched base with some of these shop owners, and I asked the same question: what do you do with these broken boards? And they're like, nothing. You want them, take them. They're going to the dumpster. And shop to shop, that was the same answer. And I thought, all right, well, I've got material. I don't know what I'm doing with it yet, but but I've got material. so that's kind of where it started. So the skateboard shop idea kind of took a back seat, because my interest then shifted towards this creative outlet of whatever I was going to do with these. And trust me, I had no idea. But when your basement fills up with broken boards, and it's a shared space with your kids, my wife kind of gently persuaded me to do something with them. So that was my aha light bulb moment. My wife kicking me in the butt.
Okay, I have so many questions. Were you do you come from a family of entrepreneurs?
Not really. I come from a large family, five siblings.
Okay.
And I guess I don't know. I just always thought myself as someone that thought a little bit different than my brother and my sisters. So
okay. Were your parents entrepreneurs at all?
No, but I think they came from a generation where you had to be resourceful. They were born of the right out of the Depression generation.
Sure.
So in those days, you did what you had to do, and you were resourceful in that sense that nothing went to waste. And I suppose that was instilled in me, and I hope I've instilled some of that in my kids.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, that's such a the reason I asked that, because I talk to a lot of people on here who are entrepreneurs, and they usually come from they learned that from their parents. Like that risk, or that side of risk, isn't like, it's hard for me to wrap my head around that, because I feel like that wasn't my environment. That's
Right.
the only reason I asked that. So back to the skateboarding versus when did you continue, as you're a child, did you always do a little bit of it, or did it completely kind of fall off your radar when you kind of grew up, became an adult, and then you just still had like a side passion for it?
My wife and kids might say that I never grew up, but that's another conversation. But no, skateboarding really took a back seat. I mean, it was completely off my radar until I saw my nephew skating, and the kids around the area after the Tony Hawk 900, and it just brought back great memories of this free spirited kid that used to skateboard quite heavily back in the Pittsburgh area, and that it just brought this feeling of freedom and independence that skateboarding is. And I thought, boy, wouldn't that be cool to kind of recreate that, albeit in a different formula, have
Sure.
owning a skate shop versus actually skating. I was a professional at that point. I've been a professional sales rep most of my career, and always attached to some corporate environment.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was just one of those things where I just thought it'd be a fun outlet and a reconnection to my youth. So
Okay.
that was kind of the prompting of that.
Okay. As a kid, did you spend a lot of time? I'm not big into the world of skating. I never really done it myself. So I'm sure in your generation, skate shops were a thing people hung out at. It was probably a pretty big deal. Is that correct?
Well, they are now.
Okay.
But when I grew up, and certainly in the Pittsburgh area, just outside of Pittsburgh, we towards the middle of my skateboarding effort as a kid, we did get one shop, and that was even to this day when I walk into a surf shop, I just love that. I just love that the sense of freedom and
Yeah.
expression, and but I just remember going in that shop when it finally came to this area. Just this, I don't know, I just thought of California, as a kid, I thought California was just so cool, everything came out of California was first.
Yeah.
And, kid growing up in Pittsburgh, that was just this complete disconnect from everything that I knew. And I just gave me tingles to go in there. And but no, shops were different back then. Certainly now they've evolved into kind of a social structure within that industry. You talk to some skate shop owners, and I've heard some say that they're professional babysitters because the kids love to come in and hang out, and nothing wrong with that at all. They actually enjoy it and embrace it. They keep some kids out of trouble, and they others into what they love, and that is skateboarding. So
yeah. And I know X Games kind of launched, at least I believe X Games kind of launched the whole competitive. I think it took skateboarding to a completely, like you said, the 900 took skateboarding to like this completely different level. So was there competitive skateboarding? Were you ever to that point? Did you ever want to go professional? What did that look like for like a hobby versus maybe something more than that?
No, mine was pure hobby.
Okay.
And the things that we did back then, and you'd hear any skater from my generation comparing themselves to what they're doing now. I mean, just night and day, night and day. I mean, to us, a slalom course and, seeing how fast you go down a hill, maybe taking some curbs and small jumps. But, now, and skateboards were built differently back then. Mine was basically a flat plank with a kicktail. Now boards are more shaped. They're concave, actually all around from side to side and back to back. And they're built that way for structure and for the skateboarders to achieve the tricks that they now do very well. But night and day from what I did, and never once really professional back then didn't exist. You would have some sponsors, there were some shops that would sponsor some of their riders. You'd have, maybe Pepsi or Mountain Dew would sponsor an event, and you'd have that type of arrangement. But it's a different level now. And to your point, X Games completely shifted that culture, 1,000%.
Yeah, that's awesome. So skateboards take a beating, but instead of seeing broken boards as waste, you saw potential. What was the biggest challenge in transforming something disposable into something desirable?
Finding the demand. It was, I didn't just fall upon skateboard tile. It was very much an evolution. It was a process. And, when I was prompted by my wife, encouraged by my wife to do something with these piles of decks in our basement, you kind of get in this mindset of, all right, I have to do something with these. And so I just started playing around with it. I just started free forming. I just wanted to see how this material cut. And my first saw was a scroll saw.
Yeah.
I would then evolve that into a band saw, but the scroll saw, I was just cutting out shapes and just getting a feel of the material. And then I decided I would start playing around with decor items. The first one being mirrors, because I thought mirrors were timeless and just a cool element in interior design. And so I made a few, and basically the frames of mirrors, and I made quite a few, and thought they look good. They look good to me, and kind of went down that realm. Started showing a few mirrors here and there, but my first real event was, and it's a complete disconnect, was a Pennsylvania Dutch Festival in Hanover, Pennsylvania. Exactly. I mean, the Dutch Festival does not conjure up imagery of skateboards and anything X game related or action sports related. There are people there making brooms and fudge and belts and but I told my wife, I said, look, I'm going to do this show, this event. It was like $50 for a 10 by 10 booth in the streets of Hanover. I said, if I sell anything, I've got something. I knew that I would have something. Yeah. And she's like, yeah, go for it, And so I put effort towards it. It's kind of a funny story because I was so proud of this first booth, this 10 by 10 booth downtown Hanover. I think I stayed up all night just getting everything together, and I had something that I was very proud of.
Yeah.
So the show opens at 8, but there were a few people that showed up. I don't know, maybe 10 minutes early, and I'm just putting the final touches on my booth. Just primping things. But I have my back to anyone that would be walking up. But I heard some traffic coming up, and I turned to engage them, and it was 4 women, and I'll never forget it because as I go to engage them, they made the comment, skateboards, and then just kept going. And I'm like, oh my God. I mean, it was, talk about deflating. I mean, it was, so my head just, I imploded, just one of those instant things like, wow, my family is so proud of me. I've got all these skateboards in the basement. My kids, they're just, so excited for me to be doing this. And I just went down this dark path like immediately and thought, what am I gonna do with all these skateboards and like all this negative thought. But then within 10 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, the show truly opened because they were a little bit early. And one by one, people started coming in. And then they started coming in, almost in droves. At that show, it went from skateboards and walking on to me selling out of everything that I had. And the other vendors were actually coming up wondering what I was selling because, they're like, why isn't my fudge selling or my brooms? And this guy with, I don't know, skateboards or something. I heard something about skateboards, it was like I had this secret formula. But it was really cool to see these other vendors coming to me after that initial response to what I thought was going to be a failure of a day. It turned out to be just the opposite. So I knew I had something, but that was mainly just the mirror aspect. It wasn't, I had some samples of tile, but it was purely, just experimental.
Okay.
And it was just kind of like, okay, and this is where I'm considering going, but just wanted to kind of put it out there and show people. But that's an evolution in itself as well, because it deals with the backing. It deals with how do you formulate this product. But if you want to go down that path of how it came together, I'll do that. But I want to stay on track with where you want to go with this.
That's perfect. We will. Were you into woodworking like prior to this? Like you said about scroll saw and
I was, yeah. I worked, I grew up in construction. I went to Penn State as well, but my dad was in the window business. He was a manager for a window manufacturer, Pella, back in Pittsburgh. And so it was unavoidable that me and my brother would somehow get away from construction during the summers. He made sure that we were involved in that. And it made sense. He was in that business, he was in that industry, and why not, coached your sons to do that in the summers during high school, college. and it was a great trade to know as well. And I'm, looking back, it's probably one of the better things that happened to me. Uh, you know, learning how to work with my hands and taking true pride in your work. So yeah, I kind of grew up in construction, and that was the interest, I guess.
How long was that 5 minutes from the ill skateboards to the first customer? Because it had to feel like forever.
It did. It did. And there's another story that accompanies that, but we'll save that for the evolution,
Okay.
because there's a great a fellow friend of mine who's also an accomplished author said these are bookend moments. So I'll explain that as we go forward, but
Okay.
we'll come back to that.
Okay.
So yeah, but it was long. It was long.
I can't, because it's like instant imposter syndrome, right? It's like
Exactly.
dread, sweat, like you feel awful.
Yeah, I thought like, wow, I've got something. These mirrors are cool. I mean, this is. I mean, I've got this locked up. People are gonna be dazzled by this, and I will never forget these women that just completely deflated me. And I want to find out who they were, because when they read my book, I hope they buy a copy, because I want to find out who they were and say, oh, that was me. I remember that.
So from the moment of that moment, you then crushed the rest of the day. You probably didn't even have to stay the whole day because you ran out of product.
Mm-hmm.
And you're still in mirror space. You go home. What do you say to your family, and what's your next steps?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it was it was one of those high. You're just high about it. You sold out of everything. The engagement was incredible, but I knew that there was something else. And I knew that given the waste that I'd seen in the industry, going shop to shop, exploring, opening a skate shop myself, I saw that this was consistent across the country, that these boards, piled up in shops across the country. So I thought, there's no way mirrors are scalable. I can make as many mirrors as I can possibly make, and it's just not going to put a dent in any kind of sustainable effort towards what I know is out there. And so I, just tinkering around the shop, and it just purely by accident, there were a few pieces that kind of fell to the side of my saw that to me looked arranged just organically like a tile, offset joints.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at them like that kind of looks like tile. And I got so excited about it that I actually arranged it back on a board to take it upstairs. This is down in my basement.
Yeah.
I arranged it on my board just similar to how they fell, but I tightened it up a little bit just to show my wife, this concept that instantly hit me. Now, keep in mind, I'm thinking, all right, tile, how is grout going to work? I don't think it will, because it's a wood product. It just doesn't make sense. But so anyway, I go upstairs, I show my wife, and my wife is the most brutally honest person you'll ever meet. And I love her for that. But for her to get any positive reaction towards something that's completely off the beaten path, I wasn't sure what to expect, but she was multitasking at the time where our kids were younger. And I don't know, she was doing something else, but she gave me a quick look and I said, what do you think, hon? She said, I like it. Ooh. And that's all I needed to hear. Because her, I
Game
like
on.
it. Yeah. Her, I like it meant she loved it. Just the way she said it, So I knew that was my clearance to move forward, just like you said, game on. And so I got to work on, all right, how can I bring a tile to the marketplace? How I can't send out a box of tile and say, all right, go install this. This again, I was thinking scalable. How is this going to be scalable? So I knew that I had to somehow develop a system that would take care of the brain work at my shop. It had to be on my end, so that I wasn't putting people in the field to work and, this labor intensive matching products or matching tiles and colors and offsetting this and that. So I thought of, mosaic tile that comes on a matted sheet, and that way you're installing one sheet at a time. And I explored many different fabric options that I just couldn't lock in on it. I just couldn't find what would work, and to the point where I got frustrated, and I don't know how long it was. It may have been maybe a week or 2 or 3, but I was frustrated. I was frustrated not being able to find a way to, bring this tile to a format that I knew I could replicate no matter where I shipped it in the US or elsewhere. So my wife and I went over to my in-laws, and my wife was talking to my mother-in-law, and I remember this conversation like it was yesterday. They were off to my left, just having a conversation in the kitchen, and I just kind of resigned myself to their living room and just flipping through like Better Homes and Garden, whatever the magazines were at the time, Kitchen and Bath, whatever it was. But I was getting frustrated because not only the backing, but I thought, I don't have any kind of automated system. How am I going to keep up? This would be too labor intensive. But as I'm leafing through these magazines, I see a woman's hand placing tile. It was glass tile. And I was like, wow, someone is doing something by hand, and it's very artisan and beautiful. And it just so happened her information was at the end of the article. Her name is Erin Adams. And from this article, I left her an email, shot a picture of my concept. And she said, Rich, I love it. I want you to come down to New Mexico to see my facility. I'll show you how I put my tile together. And I was blown away. I mean, because this was this accomplished artist and really one of the leaders of the glass mosaic tile world, Erin Adams. And yeah, so she invited me down to, and this is a stranger. This is the funny part. Now that I think about it, it's like she invited a complete stranger to come down and stay with her family, her husband and 2 young boys, at the time. Like, I could have been an axe murderer. I could have been, I could have been a lot of things, but just a very trusting person. And to this day, a friend and still a mentor today. And we continue to bounce ideas off of each other, and it's been a really neat relationship. But from that, I developed my version of what she did. Mine was skateboards. Hers was glass, but she identified the mesh that she uses. I did that. I kind of replicated a few things that she did and adapted it to my process that would work for me. And that's kind of how it was born. But we're still not in the marketplace yet.
Yeah.
Now it's just a cool idea,
Yeah, that's scalable.
Right.
So let me ask you a quick question, because something blows me away here. So you had you had excitement, doom, triumph, right? On your day, you come home, it worked. What you came up with mirrors worked. And you had enough foresight, which I think is incredible, to look at something that's new, it's fresh, it's exciting. Stop yourself to say, this was amazing, but this still isn't good enough. I would have kept running, Rich. I would have been like, victory, let's go, people. Let's start cutting wood, right? But you stopped yourself enough to think about the process overall and the scalability at that point in time, that you knew, mirrors was cool. It's great for craft shows, but it's not going to work on a full scale level from a business. I mean, that's an incredible eureka moment, because you had to. It's not like it didn't work and you're like, all right, back to the drawing board. It worked, and then you still corrected the path. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, I guess it was crazy, and maybe my wife thought it was crazy too. Like, isn't this enough, honey? No, I want more. There's more here. I know there is.
Yeah, that's really incredible, because I could see how running would have been so easy at that point in time with running what you had, because it worked. It's proven already off of one show.
Yeah, and I took those mirrors to several skate shops and surf shops. Probably the most successful one was down in Ocean City, Maryland, Keiko's Surf Shop. Still friends today. I don't make mirrors anymore for them, but we developed a really cool relationship. And again, I go back to that skate shop, surf shop vibe that I loved since I was a kid, you know? And so I walk in there today and it's just like this calm comes over me, but yeah, so yeah, I went bigger and bolder, and I really felt like I could provide a solution to the industry, because I saw the waste that was going on.
Okay, so you found a mentor and friend who obviously is amazing and must see people's true spirit from without even seeing people. I mean, that is incredible.
Yeah,
And now you have a solution to have a net back that puts it in a what did you call that? What do they call that?
a
The
mosaic
yeah, like the
sheet.
sheets. Yeah, exactly. So you have a sheet concept so that it is easier to lay than doing one by one.
Correct, correct. And so
Now
there,
what?
it's like, all right, so yeah, so is this marketable? I mean, in my day job, and Aaron was a great sounding board for, hey, Rich, you've got something here. This is super cool. Um, it's on you now, to figure it
Yeah.
out. But in my day job, I was able to work with designers. I was in the commercial interiors world, so I called on designers on a regular basis, and it was fun because they had their jobs, but they always sidebarred with me. Hey, Rich, what do you got this week? Hey, Rich, just on
Yeah.
the personal side, and I showed them this idea, and they evolved with me, and so
That's
they
cool.
they were, they were living vicariously through me, as they said. Some of them said, um, but so I had people saying, "Oh, this is really cool, Rich. You got to do something with this." But what do I do with it? It's fun to say this is cool, but it's cool. Where are we going to put it? And quite honestly, the designers in central Pennsylvania didn't have the market.
Sure.
It's not something. It's kind of like the Pennsylvania Dutch Festival. It's like what
It's
doesn't
hot in
conjure up.
Hanover, Rich.
Right, right, right. So why would this work? So Aaron, back to my mentor, said, Rich, I would show your stuff at a show called ICFF in New York, and it's International Contemporary Fine Furnishings, I think is what it stands for. But big show, 400 vendors.
Wow.
Long story short, I think the first time around, I was not invited. I was rejected, I guess, because I didn't have a website. I didn't really have anything built, but eventually got my act together and had a system in place where the following year they invited me up to do a booth, and it was cool because it was still just I think it's still a 10 by 10 booth, but this time you're in the world of like some serious players, the people in the design community, and designers from around the world come to this show to see what's new.
Is
And,
that show annually, Rich? So are we talking like a 2-year time span from when this moment happened to say all these people are saying I got something to rejected to actually getting into the show?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause, from Dutch days to, the Dutch festival to actually getting up to New York, I guess it was about 2 years.
Okay.
Um, and so I get up there and I have this vision. I've got it sketched out of what I want my booth to look like, and I've never done a show like this before. So you're getting stuff about power and lighting and all this stuff, and you're dealing with unions and just all this stuff that I've just never dealt with. And I get up there and you're completely overwhelmed because it is a sea of vendors when you get into the
Yeah.
show. Like, wow, what have I gotten into? And again, you talk about the imposter syndrome. I was like, I am not worthy. I am not worthy. Some of these guys that were there, and it was so cool because I set up, and my neighbors were being very nice. Oh, this is super cool. I love it. But neighbors at a show would say that.
They're just
So
being nice.
right, that's what I'm thinking. But so the next morning it opens, and again I'm there a little bit early, just primping things. This is my big moment. I want to make sure everything is right, and the same thing occurs. These two older women, and I reference older for a reason, but they were older. They were, I don't know, they may have been retired designers, but uh, I turn around, I engage them. I said, so what do you think? Or something like that. And they tilt their heads and they said, well, we're not sure what we're looking at. And there was this pause. And when you said that pause earlier seemed like hours, this one seemed like days, because I thought, oh, here we go again, the skateboards thing. And they, after that pause, after saying, we're not sure what this is, after the pause came, but it's beautiful. And
Ooh.
like that was like my rocket ship, because all along I thought this product had to be geared towards this cool element, the cool crowd, the cool kids, trendy and hip.
Yeah.
But here it was, these older designers that didn't even know what the material was, but thought it was beautiful. And that just took me to another place, that this product wasn't just meant for this.
It's
has
less niche.
Right.
Yeah.
And then from there, designers from, all over were coming in, and I don't know one designer from another. I didn't know some of these big firms, and they were more than reluctant. They wouldn't even tell me who they were working with or for, who they were representing. But like through that first day and second day, you would often hear, "This will be perfect for my client." And I have no idea who their client is. Is it Joe down the street? Is it, the Arby's restaurant? I have no idea what perfect for my client. Well, perfect for my client, 6 months later would turn out to be places like Google, like California Pizza Kitchen, like, Monster Energy drinks, that like, that was the perfect for my client. That was the client.
It's not Joe down the street.
Right. Joe was not down the street anymore. So, no, it was, that was kind of the wake up call to, oh crap, we've got something here, and, so then you talk about scalability. I scaled up in a hurry, and there was still a lull, before everything kind of came in, but that moment of, I've got something, I know it's marketable, I know at least some parameters of where it's marketable, and it just it kind of took off from there, and couldn't be more proud after that show, because we became the darlings of that show. It went from this little 10 by 10 booth to the other, just like the Dutch festival thing, the other vendors were coming over, and media. They're coming over to seeing what this vibe's all about. And I'm doing interviews with people, and it was beyond what I expected. When you're in this sea of big fish, big fish, and this little guy from Hanover, Pennsylvania, that started cutting tile in his basement, was mesmerizing people in New York City, and people from around the world coming in, that had never seen this before. And really, why would you have?
And when I think, cool. Yeah, that had to be, you had to leave that place just floating. Like, you probably weren't even walking out. You're just floating.
Yeah. I was high as a kite, and, this, I knew that, the reality of the situation would set in, but I was living on cloud 9 for a little bit, just knowing that, this gamble paid off, and I wasn't crazy. And even though the designers in central Pennsylvania, I had one designer that said, "Rich, I can't specify this." And it wasn't just because of, it was a little bit about the clientele, because they get pushed in directions from their clients. I get that. But it was even the fire ratings and smoke density tests that I had to do on this product that would get it to the commercial level. And so I understood some of the hiccups and, things that would hold me back. But anyway, getting past all of that was surreal. And, you wanted to say, "I told you so," but I refrained. But in my head, it was like, "I told you so. I knew it."
And it started from a love of skateboarding, the vibe of skate shops, and seeing that nobody knew what you had, free material.
Correct. Yeah. I had free material because, and there's stories behind that as well. And I want to, shout out to most of the skate community. And I say 99% of the skate community. But there was one shyster out there that you mentioned, the free material thing. There was one shop that I'd been going shop to shop in my travels, just, "Hey, are you wanting to get rid of this waste? This is what I do." Like, "Oh, super cool, Rich. Yeah, count us in." And by one, just getting skate shop after skate shop on board. But there was one shop that doesn't even matter who they were, because they didn't last long, and I know why now. But he was like, "Yeah, man, I'm on board." I came back like the next week or a couple weeks later, or whatever it was, and he said, "Yeah, it's going to cost you though. I forget what he wanted to charge me. I said, no, thanks. I said, that wasn't what we agreed on. And that's not why I came up with this. I didn't come up with this idea to buy material. I came up with this idea because it parlayed from something that was organic. There was waste. The shop owners that I dealt with and were behind this loved the fact that I was doing something creative that ended up giving back to skateboarding, not only from a creative aspect, but also, we gave back we gave back to the Tony Hawk Foundation and other skate-based charities. My first one was actually the Reed Menzer skate park in York, Pennsylvania, that I did some stuff for. But no, we gave back, and that was a point that I realized I was taking from, but there had to be a give back as well.
Yeah, it's
they
full
were
circle.
happy that I was, yeah, exactly. And so the creative aspect really flowed with skateboarding, because skateboarding is creative. It's this independent, free spirited, just release of creativity. More in movement, but this is in design, and you see a crossover from skateboarding and modern design, and it's colorful and fun, and that's part of the attraction.
So you're after that show, and you said about 6 months until you think things started really kicking off. Did you really start focusing on scalability right after that show? Because you said, oh shit, this is going to get real fast.
Yeah. And it was hiring people without without the finances to back it up.
So you were out of your basement is what you're telling me.
Well, I got a shop. My wife kicked me out of the basement, right after the show. She's like, all right, you need to do something. You need to go somewhere else. So I rented a shop down the street, which was the best thing I ever did, because it allowed me to just be, to expand and create and, come up with new ideas and concepts, and just gave me elbow room, and didn't disrupt my family, because I still had a family life and still have a family life. So, they were the central part and are the central part of my life. So, having that shop allowed me to expand and, hire people and just start cutting, sanding, so it wasn't just me anymore,
Yeah. Okay. So you go back, you hire some people, you start scaling up. 6 months comes by and these people start coming back, my clients people. What happens then?
I mean, one project leads to another, and there was some, I guess, some hesitation too, because some of these clients that needed product sooner than I was thinking I had to make it, they're putting timelines on you, like, oh crap, I didn't realize. Well, not I didn't realize, but I never really thought about what I should tell people. Prospects, how long this is going to take to make, how long is the deliverable.
Yep.
And so I think I just came up with coming from the manufacturing world, it was either 6 to 8 weeks or maybe 4 to 6 weeks, something like that. So I kind of did this 3 to 6 week kind of a thing.
Ooh,
I think it's going to take that long, but I didn't really know how much pressure I would put on myself to get it done, but I got it done. I mean, we always got it done. But then there were times where then it would just stop, like, oh, I guess that's it, and maybe just a quick run and that's it. But no, time told the tale, and I had brought other people on board, so it was the marketing of and the development of everything around it, from the recycling program to the marketing of it. And, that's where it became a nationwide movement, recycling movement, working with the Tony Hawk Foundation, just super, super good people. First it was the Reed Menzer project skate park, which kind of led me to the Tony Hawk Foundation people. And one of the better decisions that I made, because that relationship, went on for years and really helped our messaging that, hey, yes, we're taking from you, but we're also giving back to the Tony Hawk Foundation. And, who doesn't know Tony Hawk?
Yeah, everyone.
Yeah. So they fed into that, and we were contributing to Tony and his people, his foundation, building skate parks for, socioeconomic distressed areas around the country. So it was a good feeling all the way around.
Hmm.
I mean, they were building skate parks in communities that would have never seen a skate park. And with his foundation, the money that they would get from donations and fundraisers, it was going to good causes around the country. So it was the Tony Hawk Foundation. Now it's the Skate Park Project. So it kind of changed names, but still in existence.
Yeah, and in the sense of scalability of the business or growth of the business, what did that look like year on year? Were you, it can just be from it doesn't have to give numbers, but like from a revenue standpoint, was it like crazy, or how quick was that upturn in the sense that the nationwide effect had to be explosive?
Yeah, I mean, you go from a basement to a shop to, dealing with customers that have multiple locations. And, that's where you kind of did this wake up call of, this has to get, pretty serious pretty quick. And I couldn't do it alone. So, I did have others involved, and, having since sold that business, I don't want to get into all of that, but
Yeah, that's fine.
But yeah, the scalability was real, and it was neat as I go back to, I wrote the book for a specific reason, and I'm still kind of working on it. I'm kind of dialing it in for lots of reasons, but I started writing the book for a reason, and you kind of have to wait for the book to know what that reason is. But I was fueled by something, and someone, and other events to put this together. And anyway, it gave me a reflection point to reaching back out to customers, which, when you reach back out to customers, because in the moment of production, and working a day job when I first started, it was tough because I never had time to reach out to customers. I never had time to really enjoy it and, ask the question, why are you using this product? Where did you see us? I never had that connection point. And the neat thing was, after it was all said and done, 10 years later, after an installation, I'm reaching out to a customer. The one is on the West Coast, and I don't want to give away too much because a lot of it's in the book.
Yeah,
but it's some really cool connection points that came out that wouldn't have had I not reached out after the fact, after I sold my company, being prompted to write this book, which led to this whole connection that I found after the fact with customers, and why they were prompted. And, every emotion was reached, from funny to ironic to emotional, but there was a connection on every level. And, so I love the fact that occurred, and it was completely unexpected, much like my product hitting the scene. So was the reaction of some of these people and past customers. So, yeah, I mean, if it's a roundabout way of getting to what you asked me, but
no, you're fine.
There's a lot of information that I'm not prepared to share, because a lot of it's divulged in the book, and it's meant that way on purpose.
Yeah.
When the wheels come off, it's a 2-part word play, and you'll figure that out when you read the book.
That's awesome. Hey, I'm assuming, being so involved with Tony Hawk, I don't know if you could tell me, can you share an amazing moment or a great moment that you had with him specifically? I'm assuming you met him obviously in person.
Yeah, and I do have several. The funniest one is that my wife was more comfortable talking to him than I was. I was completely starstruck when we were at any of his events. Like, Tony Hawk, he's over there. That's him. I'm standing right next to him. Yes, we engaged, and he was super, super nice. But I, in the back of my head, I'm thinking, hey, this guy, he's being pulled in a lot of directions. Everybody's trying to get in his pocket. Everyone wants his attention. Everybody wants something from him. And I just want to be that guy that never asked anything of him. I just thought, if there was something between us that could happen, it would happen organically. And I always waited for that moment, that organic moment. But, you know, we did a lot of stuff back and forth. And I will say my wife had no problem talking to him. She's like, oh, hi, Donnie. It's like, yeah, well, easy for you. But
he's a legend.
Yeah, right. So, so no, but I did a lot of projects for his foundation. And, you know, some, you know, I'm super, super proud. I'm proud of all of them, but a couple standouts that I'm very, very proud of. But again, this book led me to reaching out to his people, because I don't have the ability to just call Tony Hawk. Hey, Tony, you know, how you doing? I want to ask you a few questions. But through his people, I was able to arrange a call with Tony. And the email came, and I thought, all right, for sure it's going to be, you know, through a third party or something. But sure enough, the call was arranged. It was scheduled, and I'm waiting for it. And on my phone, I see no caller ID. I'm like, well, I'm guessing this is either him or someone representing him. And I said, hello, this is Rich. He said, hey, Rich, it's Tony Hawk. Like, oh, big gulp, you know.
It's like the old women.
Right. And just had an amazing conversation. He gave me some incredible quotes from my book. You know, it was flattering because he remembered who I was. He remembered the projects that I did for him. He was never too big for me. Are we buddies? Are we, you know, are we chatting back and forth? No, but he knew and remembered who I was, what I did, and was able to share, you know, his impression of my work, and gave me some really, really good quotes that I did not anticipate. I thought maybe he'd give me something in a blurb in an email or something, but he gave me 20 minutes, and it was just me and him talking back and forth. Unfortunately, like the first 5 seconds of the call, well, the introduction, and then I was in this area that I swear I had full range. I had full bars, and it went out for like 5 seconds. And going back to those pause moments where it feels much longer. It's like, Tony, what are you saying? I'm here. You know? And he came back. Yeah, it was probably the most magical thing that he said. And I just missed it. You know, I didn't want. Hey, Tony, can you repeat that? You know, I wasn't going to be that guy. So
yeah. Oh, that's amazing.
It was an amazing conversation, completely flattering, mind blowing, and yeah. So he will be quoted in my book, and maybe even on the cover.
Hey, there we go. Can you tell me? Am I allowed to ask about the U.S. Army War College?
Yeah, you can, and yeah, that was you know, that was just an amazing situation where I was at an event. You know, I came from the commercial office furniture world. And so from that, a friend of mine was opening a showroom. It was a Herman Miller showroom, if you know that name, but high-end showroom. And he asked if I could come to the grand opening, and I surely I will, because I knew I'd see some old friends and, you know, people I used to deal with. So I was happy to go, and I'm just there talking to my former counterparts, and in walks a military guy, who's a highly decorated soldier of some sort. And I just took note of him walking by, but didn't expect to meet him. Well, to fast forward, I was introduced to him as I was grabbing some hors d'oeuvres, and they mentioned that I did skateboard art. And as they were introducing me to this gentleman that's off to my right, I turned, and, you know, it's of course that guy, but I didn't think this military guy, this high-ranking guy who turns out to be a colonel, would care anything to hear about my skateboard art. You know, I just thought it'd be nice to meet you. You know, I'm moving down the road here. He said, oh, well, tell me more. So I told him more, and I'm showing him pictures on my phone. And we just had a great conversation about family and about, you know, where I came from and how I developed the idea. And it was probably it was probably a 20-minute conversation, maybe longer. But then he said, well, I got to get going. I got to get back to my family. But he turned to the girl that introduced us and said, make sure this guy's product is part of our project at the War College. I was like, huh, wait, what? What just happened here? I'd sold my company. I don't really dive into large tile projects. I do them as they come up. I do them as people know me and for what I did. But I have to feel it. I have to want to do it.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that says want like a colonel telling you this guy's project is going to be on the War College. It turned out being a huge project. The grand scale, not just my portion. My portion was minuscule to the actual project. It was like an $85 million project. But yeah, to be invited to do this, and what happened from it was a connection that I couldn't have imagined. And again, I'm going to save most of it for the book, just because the connection is unbelievable. And I will say that the Colonel said it was serendipity that brought us together. And I heard him telling these designers that came to look at my finished product in the room that he chose. And to hear a Colonel use the word serendipity, that's not something I expected. And it's certainly relating to my product, but it was, and it became a really magical connection to someone else, and truly special. And again, I'll save that for the book, but it was really the proudest moment of any project that I've done, that I've been associated with, that this connection came about and became, I will say it was the emotional part of the center part of my book, what came out of it. But it started with a random meeting with a colonel that skateboard tile had no business being at the War College, no business whatsoever. There was zero connection. It was just a guy that saw me, liked what I was doing, and thought, I've got the choice to choose whatever I want on this particular project. And I knew that, if the colonel said do it, it wasn't going to bid out. It wasn't going to be, it didn't have to go through any, committees. I knew the colonel wanted it. It was going to happen. So it happened, and something very magical and special came out of it. But serendipity is the word that I'll use because it's the word that he used, and it goes even beyond that. So if that's okay, I'll leave it there.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good. You've had a couple moments and you can't judge a book by their cover, right? Moments in your life where the women at the show in New York, you were like, there's no way they're the audience, and then they're the audience, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
I love the fact that I do believe, it's one of the reasons I do these podcasts, is because I love learning from other people, and I think you can learn something from everyone. And I think you've had that moment happen so many times, and I'm wondering, one, you're very easy to talk to. I've never met you before on this point, but I'm assuming your sales background has really taught you how to really, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, appreciate conversation with people and bring people in. And I feel like that skill set has probably really played a big role, and especially in some of these high caliber situations where you have to be very endearing to some very big people, and you have that skill to do that and navigate that.
No, I appreciate that. And I think, you go through your journey in life, and, I was once told that, no one cared about my story. When the truth is that we all have a story, and we all have a reason why we are where we are. And it's not one event, it's 1,000 events that brings you to where you are and who you are. And what I did from my professional life definitely played a part in bringing what I did together and to the public. And I like to consider myself a good listener, because I've been on both sides of it. And if you're not listening, you're not learning. But I think I'll go back to my mentor, Erin. She told me right out of the gate. She said, "Rich, this is a cool product, but don't be a starving artist." Because there are so many creative people out there, and you and I, we've all seen the work of very talented people that never made a nickel. And maybe by design for some, but others just couldn't find that template to move forward.
The process, yeah.
And I never forgot that. She said, "Rich, don't be a starving artist." And that was that was definitely something in the back of my mind. But yeah, I mean, it was all about scalability, and it was all about believing in yourself. And, without my family, wouldn't have happened. Just wouldn't have happened. The support that I received from them, um, you know, beyond the pale of what you could expect from anyone. Because there's sacrifice involved. There's setbacks. There's a lot of question marks. Certainly I question myself every day, but seeing through it, punching through the fear, and decision making, and just complications with people that you work with. It just became a situation where you had to navigate. And here I am today. I navigated through a lot, and I'll go back to being very proud of where I am. And really, I talk about this in the book of your definition of success. And you'll hear successful people talking about it, and you never hear money. You never hear, I know I'm successful because I have this or I have that. Success is what you think it is, and that's really what I also dive into in my book. What do you determine success for yourself to be? I know what it is for me, and I can be proud of that. That's my family. My family is my biggest pride and joy. But without them, this product wouldn't have existed. And right down to my kids that were small at the time, but they were all part of it, encouraging me, and laughing along with me, and keeping it playful. So
that's really brilliant. You are probably one of the rare people I've met that I can actually ask this question to, because it's something that bothers me. So, in the world of believing in yourself, and we'll call like going after your dream, right? This was a dream of something you wanted to do because you believed in yourself. A lot of people say that you won't ever reach it if you have a safety net. And you talked multiple times about working your day job and then going after this dream at the same time. I don't agree with that model, because I think when you're 18, 22, when you have very little responsibility, not a family, that is probably the right approach for you, because it can be, because there's little to no risk in the sense of responsibility. I don't think that that's the case when you have people relying on you. That safety net I'm not sure you can be the best version of yourself if you're all in with no safety net and you still have bills to pay.
Yeah.
What are your, because you did both. So my wonder is, did having the safety net of a job hold you back, you think, in your mindset of where you could go?
I would say yes, because yes, the safety net was there for my family. I couldn't let go of that. However, I did restrict myself from, even in conversation. I didn't want. It was amazing how I kept this secret from my company, the company that I worked for, that paid me, and I did my job. That was the thing. I did my job. I did what was expected of me in my job, but I didn't want them to know about this other life that I had, for all the reasons you can imagine. They get wind of that. They think your efforts are elsewhere. And yes, my soul was elsewhere. My creative me was elsewhere. But so in that sense, it did hold me back. There were shows that I've done where the people that knew me, the designers that I work with, would come up and start talking about my other life, my creative life. And if my boss was around, I got very tense, try to shift the conversation to something else, oh yeah, no, it's no big deal, blah, 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 and just kind of push it off. So I did restrict myself in that sense, that I didn't fully just let go, because I never felt like I could. And whether that was a mistake or not, I don't know. But I know that my family is very happy, and my kids love me. My wife loves me. So what I did was what I felt I had to do at the time. Yeah. And by doing both, maybe I could have done one a lot better had I let go of another. But they were kind of symbiotic, I guess. So.
Yeah. And my thought around that is, part of it is work isn't always passion all the time. Like you're, the work doesn't have to be your sole passion project. I think people get confused around that. I think, so I think you had a passion, which probably, yes, you thought about, but like that also gave you purpose outside of work to allow you to do your work. And then your passion could go as soon as you got out of work, you were almost on a second job.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it was my release for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Besides my kids' events that were ongoing, it was this passion project that I always had on the side that lifted my spirits and got me out of whatever headspace I was in during the day job. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. So a lot to be said there, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember the days, and I do write about it. I do write about having a day job and balancing work-life balance because it does get tricky, and it does come down to what are you willing to risk, what are you willing to lose, and what I was never willing to lose was my family, and so whatever I felt I had to do was that. So, here we are today.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So keynote speaking, just want to ask you a couple questions about that. Do you do it a lot? Do you love it? Is it scary? Well, what does that look like for you?
It was scary at first, but when you're sharing a story and you're drawing analogies from your story to help others in some way, I think it's a crime not to share your story if you think you can help someone through whatever, because it's interesting that my story can relate to so many aspects in life. I mean, from I talk about beauty and the broken. Obviously with my product, I think it's self-explanatory but that relates to a mindset that mental health is so crucial these days that so many people are focused on that. And to draw an analogy from a broken skateboard to what you see at the end, a beautiful mosaic, there's something to be said there. And I draw analogies from that. I draw analogies from the connections that were unexpected. I draw analogies from rejection and fighting through it, and perception and misjudging, and you name it. I mean, every aspect of life has somehow been encompassed in my journey. So there's a lot to share, and I'm always happy to share it. So, but yeah, I mean, I was prompted to go down that path, and it comes from, well, I don't want to go too far into where it comes from, but it came from something that hit me pretty hard and fueled me.
Yeah.
It's amazing when you get punched in the gut. You can either turn it into pain or you can turn it into fuel. And I turned it into fuel. So that's where I'm going. And that's, I didn't want to reinvent the wheel. I didn't want to go back and just reprocess everything. I sold my business. It was time to kind of put that chapter behind me. And it was, so how do I reinvent myself? And it wasn't about reinventing the wheel. It was just sharing what I'd already done. And as much as you think, you've got this product that's been in California pizza kitchens worldwide, Monster energy drinks, you work with Tony Hawk. Everyone knows about us, right? Google, everyone knows. My neighbors didn't know what I did, So it's amazing, this little capsule that we live in, that you think the world sees one thing when in fact they see nothing, or they see what they want to see. So all of that is part of my journey and my story, and always happy to share it. And yeah, I mean, the speaking part, I love it. It's just something that it's fun. And yeah, I mean, any companies out there, I'm happy to engage you. You can find me on my website or through LinkedIn, Instagram. Yeah, so happy to put myself out there.
What's your website, Rich?
It's richmoorheaddesign.com.
Okay. And that's Moorhead.
You got it.
Perfect.
And then design. Yep.
Yeah. And LinkedIn, I know that's how I kind of contact, and we've been communicating as well. And just your book title again, and you believe it's sometime this fall?
Yeah. When the Wheels Come Off. And it's a multi-layered story, a journey, lots of life lessons, fun, emotion, and a colorful book as well. It was started out just being a coffee table book, but it became a coffee table book with a slight attitude, we'll say.
I love that. It's never what it seems with you, Rich. I'm learning that very quickly.
You got me there, brother.
Well, one, thank you for so much for taking an hour and 5 minutes. And thank you for stopping at a Marriott on your travels back home. Oh my gosh, I've never had anybody do that. So this
Here I am in the lobby.
Everybody's like, dang, that's a good episode, whoever this guy's talking to.
No, I enjoyed it. I really did.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Once again, Rich Moorhead, check him out. I'm assuming your Instagram and your LinkedIn handles are close to your name or your website?
Yeah, Rich Moorhead _design on Instagram.
Okay.
And Rich Moorhead on LinkedIn. So you'll find me.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was amazing. It just, oh man, what a story. That is so incredible. I'm very excited. I will certainly buy your book. Pumped for that. So I'll keep in touch up to that point. But do you have anything else you want to leave everybody with?
Brandon, I'll tell you, it's fun just sharing the story and people like yourselves putting yourself out there and allowing people like myself and others to share theirs. I think that's an important part of life. So, thanks for your time and more to learn. And there'll be a next chapter for me, and I'm sure there'll be one for you as well. But thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, everybody, we'll catch you on the next one.
All right, Brandon, take care.